would like to do a really quick recap of what we have done yesterday, but really in 5 sentences, and then we'll look even further into today's notes and materials. So starting yesterday, we had a look at DAO operating systems, so platforms that enable DAOs to form, to vote, to submit proposals, and to let's say organize the team behind the DAO. So we had to look really quickly on the idea what Suniverse, which is, let's say, the most IOTA-oriented DAO platform that is out there. And of course, they then afterwards enabled other modules, but they started out with supporting the idea of making it possible for DAOs in the IOTA ecosystem to start DAOing and organizing themselves. And then we quickly glanced over DAO House, which is one of the, let's say, older platforms. Again, I also suggest to have a look at Aragorn. Is it Aragorn DAO? Aragon. All right, Aragon. Which also was, if I remember it correctly, the team that presented the voting theory video. So they are really moving forward. Oh, they're using Badger too. That's nice. So they are also cooperating with Bright ID, which is a social KYC system. Badger, if this is the badges. Badger is one of the most used badging system. So when you, for example, I had the opportunity to follow a course at the university in the US, of course, over the internet, around community management. And after the course, I actually earned myself some of these badges. So what Suniverse did in their platform with their badges, it's something that is pretty much standardized. They do this already in the real world. And this is, I think, I don't remember if Badger was part of Mozilla or what happened with it, but they have really great partners, and they use all these kind of journeys for people to earn badges and own them and use them in their portfolio, in their CV or whatever. And this is something that I would really love to see transported to the NFT space, if you want to say it like that. So they have here maybe I have to log in with my other account or on the other browser where I have more personal thing going on, which is not being shared right now, but that's not the point. All right, now I have changed my password at some point. Well, the idea is really here that they use and connect with different projects and give you tools for doing DAO. So if you have time to explore it, you're definitely invited to do so and to see what they offer. Of course, they're not yet supporting IOTA or Shimmer or anything else, so it is mainly an Ethereum tool, if you want to see it like this. So for today, and then of course we had Mr. Whitehorse that took the time to share with us really interesting insights in assembly theory and how, let's say, everything evolves together, and so you need certain stages for things to evolve. And so let's say it is really, sometimes it's impossible to skip this kind of evolution, and how to embrace it, and how to also make sure that within your DAO you are prepared for this kind of evolution. For today, we are trying to understand how it is possible to recognize contribution. So what tools the Web3 already makes available to DAOs, projects, organizations, however you want to call it, to measure contribution on one hand, and on the other hand, how to use, let's say, your team's understanding of what is being contributed to the project to reward. The first one we are going to look at is SourceCred. SourceCred is really strongly data driven. So what they do, they they integrate, or let's say they read out of GitHub, for example. They read information out of Discourse, which is the platform that we're using for our governance forum, and from Discord. And they use the contributions, the way that you contribute to the community, and also, let's say, the reactions that are given to build a kind of rank for the team members. So this is, of course, very valuable on one hand, if you are convinced that data-driven is the way to go, as it takes, let's say, in consideration what has been really done. But besides that, it also takes in consideration the so-called PageRank algorithm, which is what made Google what it is today. So I'm not going now to really explain how PageRank works, but more or less it works like this. So if your website is really good, because people use it, find information, go back to it, stay there long, something like this, and other pages start to link to your page because you have really important information, your page gets a higher rank. Let's make it really simple. And on the other hand, if you now have a high rank and start to linking to another page, you are in one way or the other supporting the credibility. This is why cred is also used here, the credibility of that page. How did they translate it to data-driven, let's say, contribution mapping? Well, they said, all right, let's take a team member. Let's take someone from the IF, if we want to take the IOTA Foundation as an example. They do a lot of contributions in Git. They are really active in Discord. They talk about governance in the newly published governance forum, and they gain some cred, and even more so because they are longer probably than newcomers, and so on and so forth. So let's say that Philo now has an amount of creds, which is now around 300, like they share here the example of SourceCred. And now there is a new member, which might be Damdev, that is starting to contribute. And so he starts, by having 1 point, 2 point, 5 points, and so on and so forth. And there might be also some malicious actors. So let's say that there are people from other teams that want to come in the ecosystem and to play the SourceCred system to gather credibility really quickly. Well, what happens? When new members join, they have a really low cred score. And so even if they like or support another person with a low cred score, the score will still grow. Yes, that is true, but it will grow really slowly because their own credibility, their own power to support and to share their let's say their reputation within the community is really low, and so they start, yes, to grow slowly, but given that the contributions are not as are not, let's say, accepted or are not shared or supported by someone with high points, they will not really stand out. On the other hand, we have DAO, who really starts contributing. It's his second or third week, and at that point, Philo, for example, with 300 points, start adding a specific emoji or a like on a heart on discourse, on the governance forum, and that will automatically boost DAO credibility, because a high credibility member gave a new member a boost, a like, a thumbs up, or whatever emoji is chosen. And by this system, which can still be gamed, so there is a way to game this system, but it's a little harder. But by this system, they try, of course, to figure out a way to measure contributions in such a way that you as core team members can really give importance to what you feel important. So people might also start doing things in a certain direction. Let's say that, for example, today we released the identity version 0.6.0, and now Merrill starts sharing articles about what he's doing with identity, shares a how-to and whatever. And other community members see that he's getting lots of likes and cred by this, because IOTA Foundation members are liking what he's doing. And therefore there is this reinforcement within the community that other people might also start deciding, to make a video about it and share it. And people then also from the IOTA Foundation or high cred people start giving these people a like. And this tries to build this kind of cycle, of positive reinforcement cycle within the community, so that you can support these leaders and foster these leaders within your community or project to grow. So of course they have really good explanation about how it works and so on and so forth, and they have here also an explanation that it can be gamed one way or the other, but and of course the team, this is a really relatively young project, and they lately, I think, switched to a DAO, and yeah, let's say that things slowed down a little, but they were also trying to change the let's say the way the measurement works. So there is also less usage. I've seen that since May things slow down a little, so I'm not really sure if it's really going to move forward from this point on. But the thing really is that they tried to set up this tool, and it worked really well. They had a lot of projects using it. I was also trying to use it and to implement it, because of course it's a really, really interesting way of supporting this kind of project. And right now there is no active development and support. So yes, there is some. They halted the project. Come on, this is really recent then. Really recent. Anyway, the source is open source. The source cred, the tool itself is open source. It's still possible to use it and to try it out and to get your leaderboards and to use it within your project if you feel it is interesting. Come on, this space moves just too fast. In November they're pretty active. They were introducing people to DAOs and such, and so it was come on. I'm just looking through their Discord, and I'm sad because I was pointing on this tool because I found it really, really interesting. Anyway, the concept still stands. The tool is open source, so it's still out there and it's still usable. Of course, there will be no further development from what I've seen here. The other part is, of course, that you are gaining and gathering these points and credibility, which is something that Source Sooniverse is doing with their XP system here. So you're by contributing, by acting, by getting badges and other things, you're growing your reputation within the whole Sooniverse space, which means, and I think this is what I really loved about their implementation. What happens usually? Well, you switch from one project to the other and you have to start from scratch. So you're a community member, you were really known within the IOTA community because everyone knew about you. You got some pretty interesting roles and positioned yourself in the community, and people were interacting with you, and you were an expert. And now you switch to just another project because that's just how things work. And now you're new. You're a greenhorn. You're a sapling, and now you have to rebuild your reputation from scratch. Of course, you can share what you have done with one project or the other, but that also means that still you have to earn your reputation within this project from scratch. It just does not go other way, because that's how tribes work. You join our tribe, you come from the outside. First, you have to prove yourself. Well, Soon Labs tried here to use this XP systems, experience system, to give an edge, so that if someone starts working within this ecosystem on one project, they can then switch to another and still show their reputation levels and still get probably some perks that are unlocked only if you have a certain amount of reputation. Of course, it's not fleshed out yet, so it's not finished, but still the concept is really interesting. And the other thing that SourceCred did is, of course, you have these points, but these points can also be translated in what they called grain. And grain was a representation of tokens, which means that you could, let's say, translate your time that you contributed, your contributions in GitHub, into grain, which then could be, let's say, exchanged or paid out by SourceCred itself, or by a decentralized exchange or a Gnosis safe or whatever. So, for example, in the SourceCred community, grain was fixed as $1. So they tried to, let's say, translate time that you used to contribute into monetary value. And I love the idea. I'm really sad that they stopped development right now, but let's say that probably there are other issues also out there right now. So this was SourceCred. MakerDAO was using it. OneHive, which is the most decentralized protocol and DAO that I know of. OneHive was really strong. Let's say if it's still on, because of course things we really go quick. Perfect. So they do everything in a decentralized manner. So the whole protocol is decentralized, and they also were using SourceCred for this. So it was really a totally community-driven initiative, which was pretty interesting. So this is where we talk about I have to just link to click on this link about data driven. So this is mainly data driven, which is a challenge in itself, because how do you translate if a GitHub issue is more important than another? How do you translate if a pull request was just fixing a typo? So might be a low effort PR pull request change to the documentation, I mean, low effort does not mean that it's not important. On the other hand, it is still important that people contribute to the documentation, make sure that it is correct or that it is up to date, for example. And on the other hand, it's really hard to give these kind of things value in such a way that nobody fights, because what you find interesting might not be the same. I mean, it's a challenge, all right? Because my time, I might be really quick into fixing something, and I might fix a lot of, let's say, less important things. And on the other hand, another person might work on just one thing, and now you have to figure out, okay, what is more worth? And that's always a really tough challenge, even more so when you deal with anonymous people or contributors that you are not so connected to, or you're not so they are newcomers or something, and it's a trust relationship that has also to be built. And so they tried it, and as we saw, development halted. Let's see if they will continue this or next year or after the bear market. But it's really interesting to see what will happen with SourceCred. I just had to click on the friends with benefits link, because yes, of course they were using SourceCred, but I think that it is interesting to know what they did. And if I remember it correctly, Friends with Benefit is the DAO that is mainly focused on artists and creators, and they try to create a DAO for this kind of target. And you could join, for example, certain parties in certain cities only if you were a member of Friends with Benefits and had their tokens and stuff like that. So it was really interesting concept, because it was so far from crypto in itself, because it was no technologists, it was as good as no nerds, if you want to say it like this. Of course, these were art nerds and creative nerds, but not the let's say stereotype of the IT nerd. And they launched this initiative, which I still find really, really interesting, to support artists and creatives. And so if you have time to look into Friends with Benefits, I suggest to do so, because it gives you a different point of view. It gives you an understanding that there is freedom to do DAO. All right, there is not only technology DAO, there is not only services DAO. A DAO is a mean for teams to achieve a goal, a mission, to move forward together. And this is where Friends with Benefits gives you a really good example about how different DAO can be from what one might have in their head as a definition of a DAO. So another really interesting tool, in my opinion, which changes the paradigm and has been developed by the team behind Yarn Finance. So this is Yarn Finance. They make DAO easy. Don't ask me, I never used it, so I'm sorry. I will not go deep into that. I'm not aware of what Yarn really did. But I know that their team had the same challenges. They had to understand how to divide a pot of tokens, divide, let's say, their treasury with DAO members. And instead of going the SourceCred way, where it is all data driven, they chose to to write this tool, which is called Coordinate. And in this tool, you have a so-called space, also here, circle, where you can decide how people can join, which is usually by one of the members vetting, so saying, hey, this is a great guy, we should add him to our circle. because he's interested in doing whatever we're interested in, and then the other members can decide if they want to allow this person to join or not the circle. And once they have done that, you can start contributing, and not only contributing, but you can start being pledged virtual tokens, which in this case are called gifts, but they can be called whatever you want. So for example, we have one. We have, of course, Circle, because I always try to try. I always like to try out new stuff and to see how things work. And I have to go back in time, as you can see, to see how things are organized. All right, but they changed the map a little bit, so let's go back here in time. So how does it work? Well, as a Circle administrator, you define an amount of token that people can have. So you say everyone gets a certain amount of gifts, which then represent an amount of tokens. Then everyone can start and join your epoch, your session, your sprint, which can be 1 week, 2 weeks, 5 weeks, 1 year, 6 months, whatever. And then they can say, okay, during this session, this epoch, I can give gifts, so I can distribute them, I can receive them, or I do not want to receive them. So for example, let's take an example, a DAO, where you have core members. You have 9 core members, and they are already financed by a third party. So let's make a really good example. In open source, you have Mozilla, the browser, the organization behind the browsers, and there are core team members of Mozilla that are paid by the Mozilla Foundation. Really good. Now there is Antonio that starts writing a component for Mozilla from the outside as a contributor. So after some time, he was invited to the Circle in Coordinate, and now Mozilla Foundation members can say, okay, for me, I do not need to receive gifts because I'm already being paid and compensated by the Mozilla Foundation. But Antonio, Paolo, and other 15 guys, these are open source contributors, and they can decide to receive gifts. So what is now interesting? The interesting part is that you get, let's say, this amount of gifts, but you cannot keep it. So if you do not distribute them, they are lost. So next time you start again from scratch with 100. You can distribute 10, you can distribute 50, you can distribute all of them, you can distribute none of them. So it's really open and free how you want to distribute them. But you will only get them if someone, let's say, pledges them to you and gives you gifts. Sorry for this. Gives you gifts, but that's actually how it works. And so they also create this really interesting map where you can see what people contributed to, what they're doing, and who gave this person gifts and to whom he distributed gifts to. So you see here, for example, Hoon only got gifts. Myself, I only distributed because I opted out for receiving them. Vrom distributed and received. And let's say the thicker the ring, the more they receive. So it gives you a graphical overview of how the distribution is going. And this gives you also an opportunity to see, if there are 2 people that just gives to themselves, to each other. So let's say Hoon gives them to Schmucklos and the other way around, and it happens 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. Well, there is where, as let's say, a human factor is the time where the human factor has to jump in, and people say, hey, guys, let's have a discussion, because it's not okay what is going on here. So it's not okay that you just give distribute tokens out of the treasury just to yourself. And I mean, a DAO is still an organization of people, so it is also important to have such tools, but still it is important to monitor them and to see what happens. So here is, for example, what happens during an epoch. I can say, okay, I did this, that, and the other, so I held the daily IOTA DAO pioneers sessions, supported Philo with the tech behind the weekend session. What else can I add? Some stuff under NDA, Shimmer NDA, and so on and so forth. And during this epoch, I can say, okay, I'm paid sufficiently via other channels, or I want to receive gifts during this epoch. Then I do this. I can also decide with whom I'm working with. And this is a really interesting part. So it's not that like everyone has to evaluate and distribute to everyone, but you might have very dynamic teams of people working on a certain topic for a certain epoch, and then the constellation of the team changes. So you might have, let's say, Tom from legal, Nicole from UI, user interfaces, Charlie from the wallet, working on a specific integration. And so they work together in a team. And so they select each other and say, okay, I'm going to work, deselect all. I'm going to work this time with Hoon, with Linus, and with Philo. And this way they will be, for this epoch, part of my team. And the next epoch, I can change it. But why this is important? This is important because, of course, when I work with them, I can evaluate their work and how helpful it was and how much value it has to me. Because let's say that probably Dr. Electron, which was working on the wiki, did not know how important Linus' contribution was to understand how to proceed. He might not know how good Hoon was at do project management because he was not working during this epoch at this project. And so it gives the people the opportunity to not only give kudos one to each other, but also to start allocating gifts to people, which is pretty interesting because it has this important human factor which changes things strongly, in my opinion. And again, you can distribute whatever, how much you want, and this then is defined also per epoch by the DAO, how much that is worth. So let's take a hypothetical journey, and let's say that we have a DAO Pioneers DAO. We set it up with the members of the DAO Pioneers, and the DAO Pioneers now start to champion the idea to push forward this kind of initiative of teaching other, or let's say learning together with other community members how that works and how this space evolves. And we get 5, 6, 7 members of the DAO Pioneers that start becoming more independent and launch their own DAO. They start funding themselves through NFT sales, through newsletters, Reader's Digests, presentations, Udemy courses, whatever your business plan might look like. And now they launch a token on Sunlabs, on Suniverse, but listed on the Shimmer C DEX decentralized exchange. And now they can set up a coordinate circle, distribute tokens, and for an epoch decide, okay, for this time every give is worth 2 of our tokens, 5 of our tokens, 10 of our tokens, because there might be some kind of inflation, the market might grow, whatever decision there might be. So they can go then here to their space, export a CSV with a list of all the gives distribution, or you can call the token how you want, and then go to TangleC and start distributing to ShimmerC and start distributing the tokens to the participants, or probably, which would be really cool, go in their Zoomverse space, import the CSV, and start using their internal exchange to distribute their own tokens, so that people might effectively use the treasury which has been collected by the DAO to reward people for the contribution and for the work. So here it is a more human-driven way of rewarding contributions. Again, if you're interested about how they do it, I mean, the teams using it are strong. I mean, Gitcoin is a really big project. Yarn, Sushi, Bankless DAO. I mean, it's being battle tested by big projects with a high number of contributors. And if you're interested in this way of rewarding people, I definitely invite you to have a look at how apes are together strong and how this works. And if you would like to get the circle, I mean, you might have seen something here, nothing that I have to hide, but there are, I mean, the TangleC team was interested. I'm not sure that they started using it. Oh, well, they tried it at least. They might be really busy with their own project right now. So if you would like to get your own circle, also just to try it out and to figure out how it works, you can ask me. I have here a space where I can add a circle and let you test it with your team, with your members. And you can also translate it in I don't know, end of the year bonus. If you have a company, it can be a raffle. The person with the most gives might get a free NFT or something like this. I mean, you can use this in such a creative way that can go beyond what they think people would use it. So yeah, budget distribution and so on and so forth. All right, we are close to the end. So really quick wrap up again. Today we had a look at how to reward contributions. If you know any other, wait, exactly. This is not in the, and let me add it. Just as a bookmark, let's say. Let's go from bottom to top. So here like this. Of course, I'm adding it because I was quickly contacted by this team. It's a young team in the sense of that, I mean, I talked to them. They're younger than me. Okay, it's not that hard, but it's a young team, and they asked me if I would be interested in something like this. And let's say that I find it interesting. It's an interesting way of doing what we might look for, but let me just dig deep into that. What they do is use Discord and Slack integrations to share crypto rewards. When you say share crypto rewards, means okay, I'm going to give you so much and so on of tokens, and you can receive for example, a tip. So here it is. Now they get this kind of interaction. They give now a certain amount of crypto. So this is now Luke is getting $5 in bitcoins. I would be curious to know the fee there, but that's another thing. and now they can really easily and quickly reward people for their help. So we know this kind of system from tip bots, so-called tip bots. So this is a bot that supports already 500 different coins, where you can just go on Discord and say, hey, here you get 5 Dogecoin, whatever, for your support. So it's not as complex as Coordinape. It does not give you the tracking of the project management side, so you do not really know why someone got $5. And so for a DAO where you might need to keep track of how the funds are spent, because I mean, being a DAO does not mean that you do not have to do accounting. It's an interesting way of doing it. I still I'm curious to see what they do. And on the other hand, what they would like to integrate is also a so-called bounty system. It's on the roadmap. Okay, so like Coordinape is on the roadmap, also bounty system is on the roadmap, in the sense of that you can say, okay, I'm going to give $10 to the person that puts me in contact with Justin Sun or whatever. And it's also a really simple way of doing it, even though it's missing this it's a quick reward system, a tip system, in my opinion, which can be used, which is interesting, but not as well structured or as complex as Coordinape or SourceCred, for example. So let's easy to use tip reward tip bot for Discord and Slack. So yeah, for tomorrow we are going to have a look at other Web3 tools, which are Tally for decision making, Snapshot for voting, and what I find still most important and missing in our ecosystem, Gnosis for having a multi-signature safe to make sure that not one person in the DAO holds all the tokens and all the financial power over the DAO, but it is evenly and well distributed within different members, so that at least, let's say, 10 out of 15 have to collude to move tokens. But we'll get into that tomorrow, into Gnosis and the other tools. Any questions? I mean, as always, you know that you are free to just unmute yourself and interrupt me at any time. So please feel free to do so. Are there any questions like right now? All right. If so, again, if anyone, even if it's not on topic in the sense of, even if tomorrow we are going to talk about tools, but if you have already discovered some interesting tools, I mean, we are going to show just 3 of them to give an example, but there is a whole ecosystem of tools out there. So this is really nothing compared to what's out there. It's to give you a grasp of what is out there and how it can be used. But if there's anything that you found already or you might find useful and you would like to present, as always, feel totally free to do so and to propose one short or long part of our learning session. So again, from my side, I thank you very much for taking the time and joining us today. I love this initiative. I hope that it is giving you the opportunity to discover new things in the DAO space and how to use certain tools, certain thoughts, certain processes, or ways of doing DAO also for your organization, for your project, or maybe also within your private circle. You'll never know what can come out of this. And I hope that you join us also tomorrow at the same time. And I mean, we did the voting, so we know that build is out, and I'm really happy to hear that the community worked in that direction, which means that from now on, community members' contribution on the governance channel are becoming really important, and even more so on the proposal about how the process should look like. So the life cycle of a governance proposal, so how things should look like, how it's discussed, and so on and so forth. Because the more we move forward, the more the community will be in charge of deciding, and even more so now that the treasury is an option, we would really love to have your contributions towards the treasury in decision making, in being part of the process, in being an expert evaluating projects. I mean, you do not have to have a technical background. Usually critical thought and the ability to read what is being proposed and to understand it is really, really valuable. So keep that in mind, that governance is becoming a hot topic, and every contribution counts. So even if it's just for an epoch, for some time, we would really love to get your contribution to the governance in IOTA, and when not in Shimmer, moving forward. So let's wrap it up. Thanks again, and see you tomorrow. Have a great time, and bye-bye.
Thank you, Antonio.
Thanks.
Thanks.